Welcome to the Respectful Divorce Podcast. If you're considering divorce, it's important to know that you have options for how you divorce. On the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we explore those options and provide advice from divorce professionals. I'm your host, Tim Crouch, and today we're talking with New Jersey collaborative divorce attorney, Heather Keith. Thank you for joining us today, Heather.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Tim. I'm looking forward to it.
So a simple question, I guess simple, maybe not, to start this off. How in the world did you become a family law attorney?
Well, anyone who's a family law attorney will tell you that's one of the more fruitful and deep questions that you can kind of ask someone who is practicing family law. Why law in the first place? I just wanted to help people. Why family law in particular? Well, when I was about 12 years old, my parents divorced. And it just really is something that stays with you. And for me, it was a very pivotal time in my life. And I was asked to make some pretty interesting, heart-wrenching decisions about custody. And it was just an experience that really kind of took me to some pretty deep places as a human being. And when I got to be an adult, the questions were still lingering. Is this really the best way to do this? Is there a more peaceful way to go about this? I feel like I have a lot of experience in, just sort of walking in the shoes, if you will. And as an attorney, I think, and especially as a family law attorney, I think that one of the things that we can really bring to the table is just our humanity and our compassion. And this is an area of law that is very, it touches on so many just aspects of what it means to be a human being and the decisions that we make and how the decisions that we make and how we make them really bear on children specifically. And since they're the next generation, and having been a child and been through that experience as a child, it just really grabbed my attention when I got to law school and started to be exposed to the area of practice. And I just really never looked back. It's all I've ever really done. It's all I've ever really wanted to do. It's so rich in its experience. It has a lot of psychological aspects to it. And I find it very just enriching and rewarding just to be able to help people in that way through this medium.
So you sort of were moving in that direction, but how did you then get involved with collaborative?
Well, frankly, that's a bit of an easier question than why I got into family law in the first place. I got into family law, frankly, because of my trauma, and I wanted to help others heal through that. And when collaborative law started coming up as an option, and I had been doing litigation. And something about litigation just really was not sitting well with me at all. What I saw was destruction of a family. I didn't see a transition. I didn't see compassion. I didn't see empathy. I didn't see, what I saw was gamesmanship and actually kind of a lot of, this is a strong word, but really violence in a way. It's you tear a family apart through litigation. And I thought to myself, there has got to be a better way. So when the collaborative movement started coming around, I was just like, it was like a breath of fresh air for me. I was like, oh my gosh, someone's speaking my language. This is what I'm looking for. This is what we should all just be rowing in the same direction. Why do we need to be so darned adversarial all the time? This is not an adversarial situation and it doesn't need to be. So when it came around and was being legitimized and being, there was training available and there were, workshops and different places where, like it was being pretty strongly advocated in Canada. I think Florida was starting a program, it was kind of popping up all over the United States. And I kind of knew I was in the right place when I talked to my litigation attorney friends and they had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm in the right place. I'm going to pursue this and see where this goes. It was that important to me.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that the court system really is not designed for families at all.
Yeah, that's very true. By and large, I would definitely agree with that. Now, there are some instances in which a court is necessary But I'm talking about maybe domestic violence cases and, fraud on the marriage cases, dissipation. These are imbalance of power issues, but by and large, the families that are going through these transitions they don't fall in that category. And when you're a litigation attorney, it's sort of like if you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And there are just so many instances where that type of dispute resolution it doesn't fit. Why would you want to have somebody who's a complete stranger, no matter how well-meaning they may be, but they only know like the thinnest veneer of your family? They just a handful of facts they know about the family. The court system really is designed for volume, and it's designed for things that can be decided that don't have a whole lot of nuance, and things that can be decided quickly, like, do you owe rent? Yes or no? But when you come to families, how would you expect a court in any meaningful way to come up with a parenting plan, even a plain vanilla garden variety, quote unquote, parenting plan, which I don't believe there really is any such a thing, because every family is different. And I guess that just goes to prove the point. Like we can't even get that far. We can't even define any sort of plain vanilla anything that the court could really get its hands around. So it's really not, in my view, it's not really a fair thing to ask the courts to do, to sort of rearrange these families into their new configurations. They're just simply not equipped to do that sort of forward thinking. With rare exceptions, they're just not the time or the resources or the education. In New Jersey, we have an issue where, our judges can be wonderful, but they may have never even practiced family law before. So now you're in a situation where you're before a judge who's never practiced family law before, only knows the issues sort of by studying them, and does the best that they can, compounded with the fact that also in New Jersey, family court is the first place that a new judge will end up. So you put that all together, and it's sort of a recipe for disaster. No matter how well-meaning the court is, it's just you're sort of setting the family up for failure, if I can say that, by using the court system. And it doesn't matter how well-meaning the judge, is or wants to be. It's just also a numbers game. In New Jersey, we have so many cases. How on earth would any judge, there'd have to be 72 hours in a day to address all of the issues that really need to be addressed in any family law case.
So how is collaborative then different in terms of addressing each family's issues?
Well, it's about as different as it can be. I mean, first of all, you decide right off the bat that you're going to be rowing in the same direction, all of us, everyone. So it's a team approach. So you're bringing your skills to bear, going in a unified direction in the first place. And the first question that you ask is, what are your goals and interests? So, the court can't ask those questions. Only we can ask these questions, and only after we've decided that we're not going to use the court as a sword or a shield. It's an incredibly nuanced setup. The collaborative, it has the potential to come up with some very nuanced solutions to very nuanced problems. Anything from dependency issues and the fact that families fluctuate. So maybe there needs to be some flexibility in some of the parenting plans that we come up with. So many issues that we can just take a very bespoke, hands-on approach to each particular family, bringing the best out of everyone to try to get through this in a way that benefits everyone to the best of our abilities. And we can set our own time frames. So if there needs to be a little bit of a pumping of the brakes, we can do that. If there needs to be something that's addressed right away, we can do that. So it really brings a lot of different expertises to bear. I practice interdisciplinary, which means that there's a mental health professional on the team as well as a financial neutral. And that just serves to defuse a lot of things, because we're dealing with facts more so than emotions, and the emotions that we do have. And I think that, any family law attorney that you speak to will say that there isn't really any topic in family law that's not emotionally charged. Every single topic in family law, no matter what it is, if it's money, if it's who's going to be living where, if it's where do the children go to school, when do you pick up, when do you do, all of these things are emotionally charged. So through collaborative, when a mental health professional, not in a clinical sense, but they can be there to help wrangle those emotions a little bit and create an environment where the parents are learning to speak with each other and co-parent effectively, which is something you really just don't get in litigation. And then the financial neutral, their contribution is objectivity. So we're not fighting over facts. We're not fighting over these things. And we're not really fighting at all. We're just trying to gather all of these facts together so that we can put things in front of our clients and have them create their own solutions going forward that fits their family. And I have never had two cases remotely resolve the same way or during the same frame time, or they're just as unique as a fingerprint. And that's what we can do through the collaborative process that we can't do in court.
So to be a collaborative attorney involves some special training. How is the role of a collaborative attorney different from the role of an attorney in a litigated case?
Well, the first thing you do is you walk away from the fact that you're adversarial. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of attorneys who've been trained to, play the negotiation or the litigation game. It's not a game. I mean, the difference between being a litigator and being a collaborative attorney, when you're a litigator, you don't trust anybody. The trust just kind of goes out the window. You assume that you're not trusting anybody, and you prepare and behave accordingly. In collaborative, you go in, and the bottom line is that you are trusting. So as an attorney, I think that's a stretch for some people to kind of break out of the paradigm that's been taught in law school, that you have to go head to head, the LA law, the whole, that whole sort of fantasy about litigation needs to be sort of set aside when you are a collaborative attorney. And then you just ask yourself this deep question: what's the point of advocacy? What is the nature of advocacy? What am I advocating for? And how am I going to advocate? I find myself giving a lot of legal and practical counsel to my clients. I never say, well, if we went to court, X, Y, and Z, but here, you can, it's not a game of shells. It's not like that. It's much more of I know what the law would be if they weren't in this process. And so what I end up doing is I end up sort of trying to lead the client to their own solution, which is 99.9% of the time within that bounds of reasonableness that would be, in the law in the first place. The family law is a court of equity. So we're talking about fairness. We're talking about, solutions that make sense for everyone. So I think to a certain type of attorney, it's not that much of a leap, but it's between litigation and collaborative is really night and day. And I know of some, fresh practitioners or young practitioners who struggle. Well, what's my purpose if I'm not going to be litigating? Like, why do I need to be here? And you end up being an advocate, like in the true nature of the word advocacy. You are helping your client find their voice. You are helping your client express what they need. You're helping your client be treated fairly and to learn how to treat the other party fairly, the other parent and co-parent fairly, which is a very different vibe, if you will, from litigation. We just don't really talk that way in litigation. And litigation is like, well, we're going to start high so that we can end up in the middle. Like, no, in collaborative, we're going to speak the truth and say, hey, look, I'm really worried about this. So what's the solution here? What are we going to do? What if there is a relapse? What if there is, what if it turns out that you have all this parenting time and it turns out that you'd rather be working in the city? I get it. Let's make all of this talk aboutable. And it becomes more of a roundtable conversation than a very, head to head let's see who can win. It's just like a lot of this, the paradigm and those mentalities and those sensibilities just kind of competition just goes out the window, and your goal becomes to make sure that you help craft something that everyone can win. And I find that to be much more challenging than litigation, frankly. Litigation's not that hard. You just follow the rules.
And one of the things I hear is, as though one of the bigger differences is in litigation, the judge makes the decisions, but in collaborative, it's the couple. They're going to decide what they're going to do, and nobody tells them they have to do this.
That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. And in fact, I will tell you that my litigation clients, if they have had a third party of any sort, arbitrator, judge, make a decision for them, I'll give you 3 guesses as to how well that sits, and the first 2 don't count. It doesn't sit well. So if they're taking responsibility for their own things and making their own solutions to their own problems, it's 100% more buy-in by the clients, and then they end up being, I'll say it this way: my collaborative clients don't come back to me. Once we're done with them, they've created a scenario that they have created themselves that serves themselves and their families, and they've participated fully in all of the all the things that you give up, all the compromises, all of the things that you say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's like you're really truly settled. And when we take a settled case into court, because of course the court is the only one who can actually dissolve the marriage, the judges will look at us and in sort of bewilderment, because they're truly, truly settled. They're in a good mood. They're usually smiling with each other. The lawyers are getting along great. They just show up in court. We put it through. There's a vibe to it. And the judge will be like, what the heck is going on? And then we make it a point to say on the record that this case was resolved using the collaborative process. And of course, you can see right away the judge is like, oh, okay, that totally explains it. That totally explains it. And that makes it all worth it for me.
So we're doing this podcast, the Respectful Divorce Podcast, ahead of Divorce with Respect Week, which is March 3rd through 9th. In your opinion, what does respect in a divorce look like, and how do you accomplish that?
Well, the first thing that I notice about a respectful divorce is the act of listening. So that happens when the parties are truly listening to one another and who are then truly listening to themselves. A respectful divorce means that there could be alternative points of view than the one that you hold yourself. And I think that it's part of the team's biggest role is to help one of the parties understand that their own way of seeing things might not be yes, there's pain, and there can be, there's going to be grief involved, but to respect in this context, to me, means that you're able to see that other person's point of view. And that inures to everyone's benefit. And that creates a sort of a looseness and a sort of a trusting situation where that creates that container or that environment where we can then create some pretty creative solutions to their problems. And that, when you say respectful, you can't do that when you're throwing barbs at one another. It can't be done, in my opinion. You have to lay that groundwork. I mean, if there are cookies on the table and everybody's kind of getting along, even though we know we have a very difficult job ahead of us, that's sort of, first and foremost, that respect piece has to be there. It's the absolute foundation for a successful collaborative case, with the parties and with the professionals as well.
Yeah, and you sort of said it. It's not easy. It's hard work, isn't it?
Yes, it really truly is. I mentioned earlier that I was shocked to find out how difficult and how rewarding, but how difficult this work is. When I dig deep into a collaborative case, it is so satisfying. However, it is just very, very it takes all of your resources. It takes your emotional intelligence. It takes your smarts as a lawyer. It takes your logic because we're solving problems. It takes all of your attention to be present in the moment. Because there's no other way to get through this process than to be completely and thoroughly involved as a person. And that really can, it can take a lot out of you, but the reward is almost like it's really, really very rewarding, but it's very difficult at the end by the time I'm done with the collaborative case, like, I'm feeling really great and I'm just sleeping really well that night.
We've been talking with Heather Keith, who is a New Jersey collaborative divorce attorney. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, Heather, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, the best way is to just give us a call at 908-233-4555. And if you want to just kind of see who we are and what we're about, we're at www.keithfamilylaw.com. That's KEITH. And, you can see what we're about and look at our pictures and kind of learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do.
We will put all of that information in the show notes as well. Heather, thanks for joining us today on the Respectful Divorce Podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Tim. I can talk about this for hours.
This important programming note, Divorce with Respect Week is March 3rd through 9th. During Divorce with Respect Week, you can talk with lawyers, divorce coaches, divorce financial experts for free to learn more about the divorce process and your options. Simply go to divorcewithrespectweek.com to find professionals near you. That's divorcewithrespectweek.com. I'm Tim Crouch, reminding you that collaborative divorce is a better way to untie the knot.